Whereas things are getting very heated in Washington, D.C., as a select group from Congress has been given access to the unredacted Epstein files, which reference our president far, far more than anyone could have imagined.
Well, he said that I spent time on Jeffrey Epstein's island. I didn't. I mean, he's a lightweight, this guy. He's a terrible, I think he's terrible. I thought he did a terrible job at the Grammys. I thought the whole Grammys.
Everyone assumed it would be business as usual. Another predictable late-night opening packed with a few harmless punchlines, some easy laughs from the crowd, and maybe a light swipe at whatever headline was trending that day. Nothing too wild and nothing too risky, just the standard routine. But that is not what unfolded. The moment Jimmy Kimmel turned his focus squarely toward Donald Trump, the atmosphere shifted in a way nobody saw coming. And suddenly it felt less like a monologue and more like a live wire had been touched. Something cracked under the music pressure, and it was not the sound equipment. It was the tension in the room that snapped into place.
Are a big deal, obviously, and a big story, a story that Donald Trump would prefer just goes away, but it won't just go away. It's salacious. It's the kind of story that makes headlines, and he knows that. So what he does is he bombards us with a dozen other crazy things to try to flood.
Part of it is not watchable, but he was a lousy host. I'd say not as bad as Jimmy Kimmel, but pretty close. And no, he made a statement about me and Jeffrey Epstein. I have nothing to...
What began as a typical comedy bit gradually transformed into something much more intense. And you could almost feel the temperature rising as the jokes kept landing. This was not a calm exchange of ideas or a thoughtful breakdown of policy points. It felt more like watching a carefully timed implosion. From the outside, everything still looked polished and controlled, but underneath the structure was being quietly shaken brick by brick until you realized the foundation itself was under strain.
You know, it's a term you hear a lot, but rarely when it is literally true. And most of all, it is so bananas that the guy who's in charge of releasing all these files and redacting all this evidence is Donald Trump's own personal defense attorney. You know, when Trump was convicted of 34 felony counts of fraud, Todd Blanche was his lawyer. Now Todd Blanche is the gatekeeper to the Epstein files.
Hold on a second. If you are enjoying this breakdown and want more deep dives like this, go ahead and tap that subscribe button so you do not miss what is coming next, because trust me, we are only getting started. Now, let us jump back in. For years, Trump treated late-night hosts as little more than background chatter. Mildly irritating perhaps, but not worth serious attention. He has traded barbs with comedians before and brushed off their jokes like dust on a tailored jacket. But this moment carried a different energy. Kimmel did not just toss out a few surface-level gags and move along. He examined the image, he nudged at the ego. He questioned the larger narrative that has surrounded Trump for years. And that shift in approach changed everything.
How is Trump responding to that? I'll tell you how. By attacking Canada again. He's at it again. This time, he's threatening to close down a new bridge they're almost finished with that connects Windsor to Detroit. He wrote, "As everyone knows, the country of Canada has treated the United States very unfairly for decades." I didn't know that, actually. They always seem pretty fair to me, but okay. Now, things are...
Trump did not exactly shrug this one off. Now, to be fair, late-night television runs on exaggeration and spectacle. That is part of the formula. But what made this clash so compelling was not just the humor. It was what the humor uncovered. The deeper Kimmel leaned into the absurd elements, the more Trump appeared to lean into visible frustration. And we all know frustration has a way of spreading fast. Outrage travels, it multiplies, and in today's media world, it acts like high-octane fuel.
So much we can take in, so to distract us, right now, one of the things he's doing is suing everybody. Now, last night, I mentioned Trump is suing the IRS that he runs for $10 billion, and that he's planning to negotiate a settlement to that suit with himself, which is just, if any other president, it would be the biggest story of their whole 4 years in office. For Trump, it doesn't even crack the top 5 this month. But so the New York Times published a story yesterday, claimed Trump has dropped his demand that Harvard, the university, pony up $200 million.
At the beginning, it felt like classic late-night teasing. Kimmel pointed to Trump's constant online posts, his habit of turning minor slights into major battles, and his remarkable ability to personalize nearly every headline. The jokes were sharp but measured. The audience responded with comfortable laughter. The cadence felt familiar, almost predictable, like everyone knew the rhythm and was happy to follow along.
To the Spanish-speaking world, to culture, Bad Bunny got a bad review from our bad president, unfortunately. He wrote, "The Super Bowl halftime show is absolutely terrible, one of the worst ever. It makes no sense. is an affront to the greatness of America and doesn't represent our standards of success, creativity, or excellence. Nobody understands a word this guy is saying, and the dancing is disgusting, especially for young children that are watching from throughout the USA and around the world. This is a man who paid off a porn star.
Then the tone shifted. Instead of poking fun at the obvious theatrics, Kimmel started highlighting the repetition, the fixation on crowd sizes, the demand for loyalty, the recycling of the same themes packaged as brand new outrage. He framed it less as political analysis and more as an ongoing performance, almost like a reality series that never quite wraps up its season. That is where the mood tightened, because comedy hits hardest when it exposes something people recognize but rarely say out loud. Trump does not just answer narratives, he often redirects them. Criticism becomes a stage, humor becomes ammunition, and conflict becomes oxygen. But Kimmel took a different route. He did not match volume with volume. He treated the reactions themselves as the joke. He skipped the policy debate and avoided competing outrage. Instead, he mapped out the pattern and trusted the audience to see it. Ironically, that restraint may have been the most cutting move of all. The more Trump responded online with posts and rebuttals, the more it seemed to confirm the bit. It turned into a loop that practically wrote itself. Kimmel did not have to escalate because the escalation unfolded on its own.
Canada is building a massive bridge between Ontario and Michigan. President Barack Hussein Obama. Is that part of his apology for the Post the other day? Or stupidly gave them a waiver so they could get around the Buy American Act. Now the Canadian government expects me as president to permit them to just take advantage of America. On top of everything else, Prime Minister Carney wants to make a deal with China, which will eat Canada alive. The first thing China will do is terminate all ice hockey being played in Canada.
Here is where it gets interesting. Trump's public persona has long been built on toughness, dominance, the image of someone who does not flinch at criticism. Yet during this exchange, the optics felt different. Rather than appearing above the noise, he seemed drawn into it. Instead of towering over late-night comics, he looked entangled in their punchlines. And the internet caught on fast. Clips spread quickly. Reactions poured in from every corner. Supporters rushed to defend him. Critics shared the jokes even more widely. Music. What started as a monologue turned into a study of modern media strategy. Who truly shapes the narrative? The politician with the megaphone or the comedian with the nightly audience? Kimmel remained calm and composed, which is what made it street. He did not raise his voice. Meanwhile, the backlash only intensified the spotlight. Ratings ticked upward. Online engagement spiked. Every heated response stretched the reach of the original segment. Music. In attempting to silence it, Trump may have amplified it instead. At that point, the story stopped being about comedy and started becoming about tactics. Trump has long mastered headline dominance through bold provocation. But reacting to every jab can sometimes strengthen the caricature critics are painting. And that is exactly what seemed to play out.
All this other stuff going on. Busting into the election headquarters in Georgia. Arresting journalists like Don Lemon, who is here with us tonight. Suddenly shutting down the Kennedy Center for 2 years. Calling for nationalized elections. Trump suing the government he runs for $10 billion. My head is spinning. I guess that's the point, but my God. Remember when Trump was threatening to invade Greenland? That was not even